Welcome back to the SCIF. I am Matt. As you can see, Stu is not here tonight, and I am running this on my own. So it's going to be sort of a talk about what's going on with Iran and what's going on with China. I'm going to do my best here because I am broadcasting this from the Northern Command, as you guys know, is very, very difficult for me to get good reception up here. But I'm trying. I'm actually at the house right now, and if we're having any issues, let me know. Okay. I can see Troy is already signed in. Good to see you, Troy. Uh, so tonight, I think we're getting lost in the weeds with what's going on when we look at what's going on in Iran, and we're starting to hear a lot of the conservative talk show hosts, the big ones, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and a few others, okay, start to talk and push a narrative. And the narrative is really funny because it sounds awfully like the narrative that the DNC is pushing, okay? And they're trying to push a narrative that basically says Donald Trump is taking orders from Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis. And unfortunately, this is hitting because a lot of people are starting to put two and two together and say, oh, this must be the case. And this must be what the Epstein files were all about. Now, this is all 100% wrong. And of course, anything that he is talking about as far as trying to attack Trump um, is wrong. So conservatives speaking the same thing that the Democrats are speaking should give you pause. Okay, it should give you pause. I don't know what's gotten into Tucker Carlson. Candace Owens has sort of gone off the reservation a long time ago. I don't know if it's since she got married. She's married into a very, very, very wealthy family out of Great Britain. If you can see how Europe has handled this whole thing, I think they've shot themselves in the foot. But I think they're all playing a long game. When I say a long game, they're waiting until the midterms. They're hoping in the midterms Democrats find a way to win the House and or the Senate. And if they can pull that off, they're basically going to have their way because they're going to impeach Trump for one thing. If they get both the House and the Senate, they're going to impeach him. They're going to impeach him even if they just get the House, but it's not going to be a successful impeachment. Um, but I think Iran is trying to wait this out. China is trying to wait this out. And when we look at China, and getting back to this narrative that's being pushed, when we look at China, okay, we have to understand that they're the linchpin in all of this. They're the linchpin in all of this because you got to look at not just what's going on in Iran, you have to look at what we did in Venezuela as well. So there's one thing that China has access to a lot of things. There's one thing China does not have access to, and that is generally uh, oil, energy. So they get the majority of their energy in several places. Now, what I'm going to try to do tonight is build a, I don't know if this is exactly what's going on, but I have a feeling that something like this is what's in the background here. So I'm going to try to build a potential narrative of what's going on and how to make sense of all of this. Okay. And we have to look at Venezuela. We have to look at what's going on in Iran. We have to look at uh, some of these. You even have to look at the some of the economic sanctions we were trying to push upon some of these foreign countries that have been taking advantage of the United States for years. And you saw that tariffs, the Supreme Court defanged some of these tariffs, not all of it, but the Supreme Court defanged it. But the Trump administration has a different plan. And this is another argument that's coming from the left that you're starting to see echoed by the conservative crowd, such as Tucker Carlson and even Alex Jones. I don't know I like to give Alex Jones the benefit of the doubt. And really, I was giving Tucker the benefit of the doubt, but he's gotten terrible. Now, he's really, but they're all on the same talking points that the DNC is on. Okay. And it all surrounds Israel. Some of it is mixing in Epstein files. Some of Trump is the only guy who worked with the federal government to take down Epstein. He's the only one from way back who hit the mask. He's the only one who never took trips to Epstein Island. He's the only one that saw a lot of this ahead of time, and that the victims that are still around and vocal and identified have all said Trump had nothing to do with anything. So if you're going to think that with everything that went on after 2020, the 2020 election, if you're going to think that the Biden administration or whoever was running that administration would have turned over everything that they had, implicating themselves, right? You're nuts. There's no way. I'm going to try to make myself bigger here, but I don't know if I can. I'm working it off the phone, so I'm just going to leave it as is because I don't want to press something and knock it off. But this narrative seems to have hit a nerve among some of the people on our side. Okay. And look, I want to rest. I want to know more about this too. But you have to understand the 4 years under Biden, if you think that that stuff was just left alone and and we were going to get pure, unadulterated information from that. Now that we're finding the burn rooms in the FBI, the hidden caches of information within the FBI, a bunch of these things that have come out since this administration has taken power. This is nonsense, okay? And the fact that Trump is taking marching orders from Bibi Netanyahu in a country the size of Israel, whose lifeblood pretty much relies on the United States, is borderline asinine, okay? So that being said, we had the issue in Venezuela where we ran a very successful mission. We captured Maduro. We have an individual in Venezuela. Yes, she may be a Marxist, but she's somebody that obviously the administration knew they could work with. And Venezuela is humming along right now. Venezuela has some of the largest oil deposits in the world. Okay. Here's where I'm going to start putting things together. Okay. China got a lot of their oil from Venezuela because remember, China doesn't have a lot of their own energy assets in petroleum, right? So they got a lot of their energy from Venezuela, a ton of it, right? They also get their energy through one of their proxies, which is Iran, right? So Venezuela is now taken off the table, and that puts more pressure on getting oil via Iran. Now, when we started the attack on Iran, we took out the leadership right off the bat. So we know in Iran now they're under chaos. We've destroyed their navy capabilities. We've destroyed their air capabilities. We've destroyed their defense capabilities. We control the skies over Iran. We've obviously gotten very good intel via our own intel or via the Israelis. We've gotten very good intel. Nobody has seen the new leader, the son of the old leader, right? Mushtaba. Nobody has seen him. It's been reported that he is pretty severely hurt. We don't know if he's even alive. But what we do know, because of that decapitation of the leadership immediately when this war kicked off, we do know that Iran is in a bit of chaos, right? And it's in a bit of chaos because it doesn't have a unified command structure left. So the people that we're dealing with in Pakistan, and apparently the ceasefire has been extended, okay? But the people that we're dealing with in Pakistan are not necessarily the people that are in charge. There's multi-factions. So we know there's the IRGC. We know they have a massive police force there. These two units that I just talked about, the IRGC and their police force, are very, very in line with what the mullahs were all about. So they are very, very ideologically and religiously, Shia Muslim religiously aligned, right? But now you have multiple groups within Iran because the leadership has been decapitated, vying for power. Okay. So we don't know that if we make a deal with somebody in Pakistan, if that's going to be honored, as we've already seen. We're going to talk about this a little bit. We've already seen these things being pushed, right? They weren't honoring the initial ceasefire. They they try to pull a fast one, and then Trump turned around and he put a blockade on. Give me 1 second. My computer is dying, and I need to plug it in. I need to find another plug to plug it in because I've got everything used. We've never said this was a professional show, folks, so bear with me, okay? As you can see, I'm struggling here. Okay. Give me 1 second to get this unscrewed, and we will be back. Give me 1 second. Boy, this is how I can see comments because I've got it pulled up on the computer. This is what sucks when Stu's not here. Okay, we're back. So, uh, a big thing is that we don't know who we're dealing with, and I think Trump understands this, of course, but they don't have any cards anymore. What we do know is that in order for this regime to stay alive, they need to sell what they have to China, and China needs the oil because they're desperate on oil. They're even more dependent on getting the oil out of the Straits of Hormuz. So now that we've turned around, so we basically said to China, we're sending a message saying, hey, they don't want to honor the ceasefire, right? And they don't want to keep the Straits of Hormuz open. They want to try to charge tolls, and they only want to let specific boats through, boats going to China. So we're putting a total blockade, which means they're not getting any of their oil out, and nobody else is getting anything else in. This comes up interesting with this ship, the Tosca. Okay. We have two ships that were going to be in the news, the Tosca and the Tiffany, right? So this being said, now China is strangled a little bit for oil. The Europeans are being strangled for oil, right? Because they get a lot of their oil through the Straits of Hormuz, which is odd that they didn't help to try to clear it to make sure that we had steady ship traffic. And in fact, we've already talked about this with Lloyd's of London. There was something going on in the background with the European Union. We don't know exactly what, but Lloyd's of London was being very uncooperative by saying, hey, we're not going to insure ships going through because it's dangerous. And then when we offered an alternative saying the United States will insure ships going through, Lloyd's of London came back to their customers and said, we're going to punish you if you take the United States insurance, right? So what does that tell you right off the bat? They're all waiting on the midterms, right? Europe, it's been exposed through this action in Iran. And I know I'm jumping all over, but these pieces all plug together. Okay. So Europe has basically given up on defending themselves. Europe has given up on defending themselves. And you're going to say, well, why would they ever do that? This is suicide. Over the years, we've talked about the World Economic Forum. We've talked about the deep state, the New World, right? And the fact that the European Union is all one organization is kind of like the first step towards that, right? It's all tied in. I don't need to get into the details of the New World Order here. We've talked about this ad nauseum, and almost everybody out there understands exactly what we're talking about. So we have the New World Order out there. You have the European Union. Trump is now coming in with NATO because the reason these European countries have allowed themselves to no longer have a military or a legitimate defense is because we've taken up that role via NATO. We do it. 60% of NATO is funded by us, right? Excuse me. So 60% of NATO is funded by the United States. And all of these bases that we've built for and paid for, being told by these NATO nations that we can't use. And in the meantime, what have they done with money they used to spend on defense in Europe? They have imported millions of third world immigrants to basically destroy the culture, the language, and the future of all of these European countries. This is what they've done, whether you want to say it or not. And then they've used that money that they've used for defense to create a massive welfare state in order to support that. This is what they've done. And if you have any doubts, just go and see what's going on in Great Britain today, in Germany, in Sweden, on and on and on. Okay, Spain, they can't get enough immigrants in there and make them citizens fast enough in Spain with this new leader that they've got, this Marxist leader, right? Who didn't win his election, by the way. He didn't win. It's they gathered together to put him across all of the parliament. The different leftist organizations in parliament joined forces in order to put him over the top, right? This is the guy who wouldn't even let us use their airspace. So with all of this going on, they're all waiting Donald Trump out because Donald Trump is now threatening to pull out of NATO, which we should, to be honest with you, in my opinion. We should pull out of NATO. If they can't even help clear the Straits of Hormuz, and then Great Britain has one operating ship, military ship, battleship, that they send to Cyprus and then it breaks down in Cyprus, this is pathetic. You know, Great Britain was always known for having a massive navy. They don't have a navy. They don't have a defense. None of these European countries. And what good are they for us? How could they be good allies for us if they don't have a defense network? They don't. They have it on paper, which is sad. They're really letting the citizens of their own countries down, right? But this is all in the background working, and China needs that oil. But China is the one that is creating all the difficulty, or has been historically, recent history, in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, China, almost 100% of China's oil moves through two straits, okay? The Strait of Hormuz and the Straits of Malacca, right? You're not hearing this in any of the news stories, or very, very few. You have to look for it. But we just signed a military partnership with Indonesia that gives us military access to the Straits of Malacca, right? So what Trump has done with all of these people on MSNBC and CNN and all of these left-wing outlets, all of them saying Trump didn't have a plan, okay? Unless this all just magically just happened by accident, and he's the luckiest person in the world. What Trump has basically done is put China in a corner. Put China in the corner because we're controlling the world's oil supply. The United States is. We're controlling the world's oil supply. Now, while the Biden administration try to shut down our own production, we're starting to get our production up and rolling again. And the United States is once again going to be a major player in the world oil market. We have tons of natural gas here. Canada does too. The same thing is going on up there. They're being pinched, and that's why Alberta is looking at possibly seceding from Canada. They're being pinched, and all of the money that they do produce is being taken out in order to support the rest of Canada, Quebec, right? So this is what's going on. So in the meantime, Trump has China in a corner. And it's funny because Trump is going to be meeting with Xi Jinping here in the next month or so. I think a couple of weeks, actually. He's going to go meet with him in a couple of weeks. And right now, you're starting to see that all of this excess enriched uranium that the Iranians have, the Chinese just offered to take that off of their hands, because this is one of the sticking points in the negotiation. So the Chinese have already stepped up a little bit, but the Chinese now know when Trump shut down the Straits of Hormuz because the Iranians were playing games and the Chinese were playing games to only allow their ships through, right? And to still try to basically control it. Trump just took that card away from him. And not only is he shutting down the Straits of Hormuz, the Gulf of Oman, which is right after the Straits of Hormuz, nothing is getting in and nothing is getting out, which leads us to this ship called the Tosca. Okay, as everybody's probably seen, we followed this ship around, and this ship would not respond to commands for over 6 hours. Okay, and this ship was headed to Bandar Abbas in Iran. It's a port in Iran, Bandar Abbas. Okay, and this ship came from China, right? But you have to see, if you follow the path that this ship came, uh, it was blacked out. So it like all of a sudden appeared, and you had to piece it together to see exactly where it came from. So they were trying to run under the radar, is what they were trying to do. And they wouldn't respond to any of our commands to stop. And eventually, we had I think it's a guided destroyer, uh, that told them, you better get everybody out of your engine room because we're going to shut down your propulsion. They fired 3 shots. They shut the propulsion of the ship down. Okay. And then Marines from the 31st Expeditionary Unit took off from I think the USS Tripoli, and they landed on this ship. And the rumor is what they found on this ship was rocket fuel. So rocket fuel from China, right? So this means that China hasn't been playing very fair. Now, if anybody believes that China would ever play fair, they steal our intellectual technology. They steal everybody's intellectual technology. They manipulate their currencies. They don't trade fairly. Their main goal that they've been focused on. We always say this. In the year 2000, China's economy was roughly the size of Texas. It can be argued their economy is bigger than ours today, right? And we did this because we gave them favored nations trading status. This all started with Henry Kissinger, right? Went all the way through. We opened up trading with Kissinger started that process under Nixon, and the Clintons gave them favored nation trading status. And up until recently, very recently, we gave them special consideration as a developing nation, even though they were eating our lunch, right? And their main goal is to take over as the sole superpower in the world, where China controls everything, right? That is their main goal. But here you've heard deep state actors say, Russia bad. Look at Russia. Russia is a fraction of what China is, okay? A fraction. But they want you to look at Russia and not look at China. And if you look at things tactically, China is our number one biggest enemy in the world. Okay. Our number 2 enemy was Iran. Iran was kept in power, okay, and kept going via China. Okay. When we put sanctions on the oil over this nuclear deal, you're going to see Democrats get on and say, oh, we had a deal that was going to stop them from going under the Obama. That deal was nothing of the sort. That's a 100% lie. When you see these Democrats go on these talk shows and just spout, okay, they're lying, they're misinforming, they are coming up with a narrative that they're trying to push, and then they'll talk over, and they'll keep talking over, they'll come back, they'll lie some more, they'll misinform, they'll create false narratives. This is what they do. This is their tactic. So they want you to believe that the Obama administration that was funneling billions of dollars back to Iran, which they said was their money anyways, right, had Iran on a path where they would have never gotten a nuclear weapon. That's a lie. It was a controlled path that they would have eventually gotten a nuclear weapon. And we didn't know that they had ballistic missiles that could hit Europe, and they demonstrated that by hitting Diego Garcia, which just showed to all of Europe, this isn't our war. We did you a favor because they could have hit you. If they would have gone nuclear, they could have tipped those with nuclear weapons, and they could have hit Troy slapped China as asso. He watches Salty Cracker. So they could have hit anywhere in Europe. And not much longer after that, especially with the help of China, they could have hit the United States. Anybody out there saying, and this is what hurts from hearing people in the military say this, that China was not a threat, or Iran is not a threat, that's a straight up lie, and they know better. It's a straight up lie. They're either very naive or very stupid, and I know these people aren't either. So what's going on here, right? And then to say that we're being led around by the nose by Israel is asinine. It's absolutely asinine. So do I like that the United States is so involved with sending money to all of these places, including Israel? Absolutely not. We're $40 trillion in debt. We shouldn't be sending money to anybody, right? So getting back to the story, the rumor is, and I haven't heard it in multiple places, but I have seen it. I have seen it in multiple places, but I'm not seeing it in the mainstream stuff yet. If you guys have out there, let me know, because I have not seen it in mainstream media yet. But the rumor is that that boat was full of rocket fuel. That's why it wasn't stopping. Okay, and that's why it was hit coming from China to begin with. Okay, now there's a second ship. I believe it's the Tiffany, right? The Tiffany tried to outrun going from Iran to China, right? Full of oil. We stopped it too. We went on, and just so you know the numbers, okay? Through the Straits of Hormuz, the Iranians make roughly $400 million a day in oil revenue, and they make over 5 billion a month. Okay. Now, one of the things that we need to talk about is these wells. Okay. If you don't keep these wells going, these wells dry up, and then they're very, very difficult, and it's expensive to get them primed and running again. Right. So this is why this blockade that Trump is doing, all Trump has to do right now is sit back and just let it collapse. If you keep that blockade going, you're going to bring China to their knees. Obviously, Iran is already on their knees. This is desperation from them. You're bringing Europe to their knees. And I think we just sent Australia a bunch of diesel fuel, right? So many things have been shaken out. We can see who our friends are. We can see exactly what the table is. We can now start to make sense of what was going on in Venezuela and why we did that. And right now, you know who else is getting ready to collapse because they can't get oil or anything else? The Cuban regime. And we've allegedly got Cuba surrounded too. So all of these thorns in America's side for years and years and years, with one fell swoop here and a few moves on the chessboard, we have got them all cornered. And basically, they're going to have to play ball with the Trump administration, because if they don't, okay, we're going to watch. The Iranian regime is gone. It's gone. It's just a matter of time. Okay, you're going to see Cuba. That's going to collapse. Right. China is going to be put back in their place, because China has been all over the world. We have feckless leaders here in the United States and in Europe that have allowed them to do this. We're getting them out of our hemisphere, right? And China is going to have to deal with us fair. And if they don't deal with us fair, then we hold the cards, because we control the energy, right? At the same time, you have the Abraham Accords, which is the Trump administration 100%. You now have the Gulf states working with Israel, and now looking at saying, holy smokes, we can continue to make money here. Everybody knows uh, the elaborate cities and everything they have in UAE, Qatar, all over there. Okay. The United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, even now, they're making money hand over fist. And they didn't need Iran ruining everything that they're building over there. And that's why they've joined up, and now they're working with the United States, with the Israelis, with each other. They're not necessarily getting super involved as far as what's going on in this war, but they are involved, and they're all for it, and they support it. Europe needed to support this, and they didn't. Europe wants to sit back and cry that this wasn't their war, and when it was their war, it was absolutely their war. They get all their oil, a lot of their oil, through the Straits of Hormuz. They are under threat from this Iranian regime. And they're the first ones that would be in the crosshairs because they had the capacity and the technology to hit Europe, not hit the United States, right? And now you're starting to see why Trump wants Greenland so bad. So you're starting to see these things. And we have one of these deep state actors uh, that's up in Canada, and Canada had created a partnership with China. So Canada doesn't even want to be under the Golden Dome that we're going to put up, the Golden Dome program that Trump was going to put up, that's going to protect all of North America. And this is why we needed Greenland, right? One of the reasons why we needed Greenland. So I think we're going to come out of this thing. China is going to be severely handicapped. We're going to control pretty much the world's oil supply. Yet you have the media here, left-wing pundits, the Democrat Party, and some of these fake conservative pundits who are doing, a lot of people are suggesting they're being paid. I don't know any of this, right? I don't know any of it. But you're starting to see people change their worldview on the drop of a hat. Tucker Carlson is basically extolling the virtues of Islam now, apparently. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. This wasn't Tucker Carlson 6 months ago, 7 months ago, right? So everybody's sitting back saying Trump doesn't have a plan. Trump is taking orders from Netanyahu. We've gotten into a quagmire. This is a war that's never ending. The Iranians are winning. It's all lies, and it's 180 degrees from the truth. It's 100% misinformation. It's designed to push a narrative, and the narrative is Trump is bad, we're losing, and there are no facts to back any of this up. In fact, the facts are quite to the contrary, and I think the American people see it because in the Republican Party, I think Trump's approval rating is now back up to 84% in certain polls. And the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owens, and it's sad to say it, the Alex Jones, and I forget the guy's name, the Groypers dude who gets on there and bloviates and doesn't know shit. He's a young guy, but people seem to follow him. He's always been trying to tear down. This crew pushing their narrative. We're hoping that they could tear MAGA apart. They have not. Okay, they have not. So I know I bounce back and forth on this, but if you look at how things have been done, when you add up the facts that we now have control of Venezuela, Venezuela is working with this administration, oil is flowing to the world back, we're getting them up to speed again, and they're not selling to China unless it goes through us first, which we're obviously going to sell to China, right? You look at the deal we reached with Indonesia in the Straits of Malacca, the military deal, who I really, you're not, this should be mainstream news. You're not seeing it, right? If we had legitimate mainstream news. You see the operations going on in Iran and how we have just decimated every single aspect of their fighting capability. Now, another lesson that we need to learn here is when you disarm a population, that population becomes a slave. So the population within Iran that wants to rise up and take over, right? They can't because they don't have any firepower. They don't have any weapons, nothing. The weapons are all in the hands of the police and the IRGC. Okay, that is an ongoing problem that doesn't fully have 100% of a solution just yet. Okay, apparently we were trying to work with the Kurds. You've heard me say a lot of good things about the Kurds, but apparently we were trying to supply the people weapons via the Kurds, and the rumor is the Kurds stole the weapons. So that's what was going on there. We do have some things that we need to sort out, but right now, Trump is putting pressure, severe pressure on China to solve the problem in Iran. And if China wants to get their oil and wants to get their economy going again, they're going to need to deal with Iran. Their proxy is no longer. Their proxy that they used to sow all sorts of chaos in the Middle East is gone. It's absolutely gone. And no matter how anybody wants to play this, there is nothing left of the Iranian regime. You have a bunch of thugs running around, okay, trying to threaten the world because they're desperate. They can't get money now. They can't fund themselves. Why can't they fund themselves? Because we have the Gulf of Oman and the Strait of Hormuz blocked. They can't get their oil out. A lot of the Gulf states have now built pipelines that allow them to move their product around without going through the Straits of Hormuz, where China could interfere. I mean, where China or Iran could interfere. Okay. The proxies of Iran, those proxies are basically the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Hamas. Here's another aspect that has come up. The Lebanese government has agreed, this is another thing that should be huge news, has agreed to work with the Israelis on basically ridding the country of Hezbollah, which is huge, absolutely huge. Okay, so Hezbollah is no joke. Hamas are like the JV, Hezbollah is the varsity. Okay, so there are so many things that are going for the United States right now. So I want you to make sure that you watch the news and then look at the lies and the narratives they're pushing. And anybody on our side that doesn't want to listen to the facts or see the facts, and they want to push the same narrative as the Democrats and the deep state that are trying to ruin this country, ruin the world, that have ruined Europe, you know they're fake. You know they're false. And you should never, ever go back to them again after this is all said and done. They know better. Something has corrupted these individuals. I don't know what it is. The rumors are they're being paid. The rumors are a bunch of things. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. But when somebody changes their ideology on the drop of a dime like this so quickly, you should be dubious. It's blue collar logic, like we always say. Blue collar logic. 1 and 1 always equals 2. Okay. If it doesn't, you should question that. Okay. If it talks like a duck, it walks like a duck, swims like a duck, it's a freaking duck. Okay. So none of this is that difficult if you start putting these pieces together. And when you put these pieces together, this administration has, in my opinion, performed a masterclass. Now, we don't know how this is all going to end yet because we haven't reached that point. Okay. But it can't end good for anybody in Iran. So anybody in the news telling you that the IRGC is going to win this, or they can't. Their navy's on the bottom of the sea. Their 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 air defense is completely up in flames. Every offensive tool that they have has been pretty much taken out of commission. Now you're going to say, how did they get the mines into the Strait of Hormuz? They use these smaller boats that are basically civilian type boats, and they dump these mines in there, and they've lost track of where they are. But we have technology in there. We have underwater drone technology. We have other technology. We are going to find these and clear them up. It would have happened a lot faster had the Europeans been able to help us. But as we're seeing, the Europeans don't look like they're even able to help us, to be honest. They don't look like they're even able to help us. Now, you sprinkle in everything that's going on with this new pope that we have, this new pope that is kowtowing to Muslims in Algiers. I see Freedom US. Good to see you, Freedom. I've been finding it more difficult to find facts lately. Really need to search. Wasn't aware of some of this, man. Thanks, Freedom. They want it to be difficult for us to find facts on this. It's like pulling teeth now. What really sucks, I don't know if you guys, this might be a little bit before. I used to I used to be, every day I would listen to Rush Limbaugh when I was young. Every day, and just listening to things that you would hear and listening to his viewpoints on things and how he would break things down. We had a huge loss when we lost Rush Limbaugh because there's nobody that could have replaced him. There's another guy I hope that would have replaced Rush Limbaugh, at least on the radio after Rush Limbaugh passed away. That was Lou Dobbs. And now Lou Dobbs has passed away. These guys that they used uh, to take the place of Rush are terrible, in my opinion. Uh, Buck Sexton and the sports guy, their takes are so bad on so many things. I have a hard time. But you are 100% right. We've lost the Drudge Report, right? We have places like Just the News, but they're still not as powerful as what the Drudge Report used to be. And it's very, very difficult to start to dig in because you're getting so many different slants on what's going on. And even from our side, there's people on our side, like I've already mentioned ad nauseum here. So freedom, we need to keep digging for it. But a lot of this information is out there. It's just nobody's talking about it and nobody's putting these pieces together. Nobody's doing this. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. There's a handful of people doing this, right? But there's nobody in the mainstream media putting this all together. This whole thing has been an operation, and it's been a brilliant operation, and it's happened quickly. Now, we know that the midterms are coming up, and we know that we're all scared if we don't win the midterms. Another thing that's happened, we keep getting frustrated by the Republican Party. Okay. For example, last week, we've talked about 300,000 Haitians that the Biden administration illegally brought in here and then gave them protective status. Their protective status ran out, and these 300,000 Haitians were supposed to go home, right? Now, last week, you had an incident in Fort Myers, Florida, where a Haitian was smashing out the windows of a cashier at a gas station, a major gas station in Fort Myers. She came out to ask what was going on, and he proceeded to run up to her and bludgeon her to death with the hammer. While this was going on, we had 10 Republicans. We had 10 Republicans join the Democrats to extend keeping the Haitians here for another 2 years, which means they're trying to get it past the Trump administration, right? So they stay here permanently, right? And that Maria Salazar in Florida, she's a disaster. She was one of them. I think Don Bacon was another one. They're basically these guys out of Ohio and out of Florida, Republicans, all joined, and then the Democrats broke into applause and cheering after they pushed this and extended their protective status another 2 years. So most of us, and it's not because we don't have big hearts. We say this all the time. We want people to come here that want to be Americans, that don't leech off of our system and our taxpayer dollars, that come here to become American, to learn our language, to respect and understand our culture, to understand our history, and to basically be productive members of society and be fellow Americans. We don't care where you come from. 99% of us want that as an American. That's not what we're getting. We're getting people who come here and will not assimilate. They're blatant about not assimilating. Okay. They don't work. They don't have any skills. They're not developing skills. We get a lot. I'm not everybody, but the vast majority. And then they go on welfare, our taxpayer dollars. You and your family have to struggle to figure out how you're going to pay medical insurance, right? They get it carte blanche. A lot of these illegals even get things like uh, Social Security, which you've paid into your whole life and may not get depending how old you are. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. And it's not fair. And we're $40 trillion in debt. We can't afford to have our country destroyed by people who don't respect our country, don't want to be here, don't respect us, and aren't going to hold up their end in order to be able to be a productive member of society. We don't need that. We don't want that. And if that's what you are, we don't want you here. You have to come here legally, and you have to come here to be American, and you have to come here to not drive us more into debt. And this is where we're running into trouble. And they're doing it to the United States. And the reason, and this is my theory, why Russia bad, ever since that failed attempt by Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State to normalize relations with Russia, that failed attempt, they weren't on board. They weren't going to flood their country with illegals. This is why they hated Orban. He wasn't going to flood his country with illegals, right? That's why Russia bad. That's why take your eye off the ball. Do you see China bringing in third world illegals and flooding their country with that and giving them welfare? Hell no. No country that that cares about their future and cares about the people in the country. Not saying that China does, but they care about their future, right? No country that is concerned about surviving and thriving into the future would do any of this. It's blue collar logic once again. So this is really what I wanted to hit on, because we're still winning, but we've got to make sure that we go out. And I know these Republicans piss me off. They piss you off. They piss me off. We've watched John Thune and these rhino establishment Republicans in the Senate block the SAVE Act. They have blocked it. Despite acting like they're all for it, they have blocked the SAVE Act. Why have they blocked the SAVE Act? They blocked the SAVE Act because they're bought and paid for by organizations, special interest organizations like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, like big agriculture, like big pharma. These organizations want the illegals here. Why? Because they want cheap labor, but it's not just cheap labor. They want to sell them stuff on your taxpayer dime. Do you think Walmart loves how much EBT they're giving to illegals or selling to illegals and collecting your taxpayer dollars for it? Absolutely, they do. It is on your back. And these senators should not be beholden to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They should be beholden to you. And they're not. So we need big changes. We have one guy that is trying to fight back. We haven't gotten everything we asked for and wanted. But we got one guy that's fighting like hell. And we've got a handful of others that are fighting like hell. And we have people on our side, you joining the side that caused all this problem to try to destroy it all. Now, in America, we can have disagreements, but you can't go and blatantly lie about what's going on. And everything around this Iran war that you're getting from the mainstream media is primarily lies, disinformation, and falsehoods and narratives. So this is why we go through this and we educate others. You guys out there that watch this show we're a tiny, tiny, tiny channel. We're a tiny channel, but the guys that watch this show are more educated than anybody else. It's dependent on you to go out and educate people that are willing to listen. Some people aren't. Don't waste your time. But we've got to push. We've got to push the truth. We've got to help guide people to help look on their own to find the facts. This is why it's so frustrating as freedom states. It's hard to find facts. They manipulate. We know they manipulate search engines. We know it. There are new search engines like Brave out there, and well, I should say operating systems that you can go and you're still beholden to Google. No matter what you do, you're still somewhat beholden to Google. But there are places that we can do, and we've got to get good at digging up information on our own. And this is difficult. I mean, if you go on YouTube and you type in The Green Beret Life, the name of our channel, look how far down it is. You'll see everything in front of it. That is intentional. That's intentional. Not that we're a threat to anybody, as far as, becoming a huge channel. We're not a threat to becoming a huge channel, but we do not have a narrative that the mainstream and Google likes. So they shut us down, right? That's just an example. So when you go to Google and you type in, hey, I want to know more. I used to always talk about this in 2008, the Community Reinvestment Act. If you typed into Google the Community Reinvestment Act, you would get a million stories about how the Community Reinvestment Act had nothing to do with the crash we had in 2008, when it had everything to do with it, right? You would only start getting information multi-pages away. Now you don't even get to that because it's gone. It's gone. It's manipulated so you can't see it. The algorithm is working against us. So this is why we need to outsmart it. And then we said, okay, Now we have new media. We don't rely on the old media, which is, radio, TV, newspaper, print. We know that's all corrupted and garbage. It's fake news. We know it, right? So now we start turning to, you know, not this show per se, but bigger shows than this to try to get information. And now we have these people that we trusted, Tucker Carlson. I trust Tucker Carlson, right? We have guys like that. And now you're getting all this bullshit. And it's like, holy shit. So don't think that they're not trying to manipulate this now, too. The people we're up against, the deep state, the globalist deep state, these are smart people. They didn't gain control of the world and all of the access to all of the levers of power by being dumb. They're very, very smart. So you know right now that they're hitting this stuff. So this is where we're at, unfortunately. So we can sit here and cry about it, or we can do something about it. The people that listen to this channel do something about it. You guys are dedicated. You're on top of it. I like to think that I'm dedicated on top of it. I struggle to communicate it as well as I'd like to. But I really, I love this country. You guys love this country. You're all patriots. And we hate to see what's happened to our country. We hate to see what, through the Clinton administration, through the even through the George Bush administration, then the Barack Obama administration, and all of it. Yeah, freedom. Yeah, I left this on YouTube right now. I left this on. So it's one of those things. But my point was, freedom, if you were to do a search for the Green Beret Life, so like you wanted to see something that we did, if you want to find a channel that you like I watched The Humble Marksman, right? So you would type in The Humble Marksman, boom, that's the first thing that pops up because you've typed in the name of his channel. If you type into YouTube the name of our channel, The Green Beret Life, we're like 30, 40 down before you'll find us, right? That's intentional. That is 100% intentional. So yes, we left ourselves on YouTube. We've been doing that here lately. I think because of this administration, they are not swiping channels as fast right now, but the algorithm is still working against us. Can somebody respond in the chat? Can you guys hear me and see me okay? Because I'm looking at myself on Rumble on a different computer, and it looks like I don't have the volume up, but it looks like there is not the greatest reception. Are you guys getting decent reception, and can you hear me? I'll wait to see. But anyways, this is what has happened. Always okay, perfect. Thanks, Troy. So you guys can hear me. So all is not lost. I heard today, and I might not be 100% positive in all these numbers, but the RNC has roughly $100 million in its coffers, and the DNC has 15, and they had to borrow money in order to run these governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey. Now they won both of those governor's races, right? It's disaster what's going on in Virginia right now, but that's a story for another day. Thanks, freedom. But we also have North Carolina and Nevada have now flipped as far as voter registration, and these are now red states with more registered Republican voters than Democrat voters, and Pennsylvania is really close to flipping. Okay, so this is the Democrats should be double digits ahead right now, and they are low single digits. The Democrats are in trouble. They're in trouble. This is why we need to keep pressure on these senators to push this SAVE Act through. And it's really funny because of the work through Doge and also taking down USAID that the Democrats are having trouble with money. Isn't that interesting, folks? Isn't that interesting? So everything that's going on with USAID and Doge, the Democrats are now having trouble raising money. My point with all of this is, Okay. This doesn't mean that we're automatically going to win the midterms. Okay. But we need to get out there and we need to fight and educate people, and we need to get people to show up on these midterms. And we need to get people past this noise of all of this bullshit. I don't like us funding other countries. Do I think Israel's the greatest place in the world? No, I don't. Okay. Do I think they're the worst? No. Do I think they're probably our best ally in the Middle East? Probably. Right. But is there a lot of deep state stuff coming out of Israel? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I think that we should be pumping all that money into Israel or any other country? Hell no. Hell no. I am America first. I'm America first. And I just don't want this bullshit to spread out there that it takes hold within our community. Okay. So I'm going to end it here. Okay. A little bit early, 5 minutes early or so. But I want to thank you guys for taking a part in all of this. I want to thank you guys for dealing with some of the nonsense you have to put up for it with when Stu's not here, and how I operate this, because Stu usually sets it up if he's not here for me and I come in, but Stu is much more proficient with running the dials and the knobs and turning all that shit than I am. Okay. But I hope I made sense. I know sometimes I ramble quite a bit. And I just wanted to try to put these pieces together to get you guys thinking and looking. And you guys already know that don't believe this nonsense you're seeing in mainstream media. Don't believe it. And actually doing pretty damn good. And we need to be where we're at, and we need to be grateful that we have a president. I know I sound like a cheerleader for President Trump, but the guy's a patriot. He is absolutely a patriot. And he has taken a lot. A perfect man. He's a being. None of us are perfect, right? But thank God we have a president coming that he knew was going to happen. Iran needed to be dealt with. China needed to be dealt with. NATO needed to be dealt with. Okay? Thanks for being a patriot. Thank you for being live in freedom every day. Speak 90% positive next week, and you guys enjoy some of the good weather that's starting to show up here in Wisconsin. But thank you guys. We'll see you guys next week. You guys take care.